Hi, and welcome to Thank You Five. It's a weekly show hosted by Strawdog Theater, where we bring theater artists from around the globe in conversation about live theater in a digital world in the spirit of gratitude and innovation. I'm Johnard Washington. I am a company member of Strawdog. I'm an actor here in the city of Chicago. I've been living here for almost 12 years. Um, Jess, I would love for you to introduce yourself to our audience. Who are you?
That is a fine question, Johnard. I'm so glad you asked. My name is Jess Hutchinson. My pronouns are she, her, hers. I have lived in Chicago for all about 18 years, if you don't count the time that I went to Texas to get an MFA. I am a director and dramaturg and administrator and educator, and I am about to finish up a program at U Chicago in nonprofit management and social sector leadership.
Awesome.
And we have a new mayor in Chicago, and I just can't stop being so excited about it.
Yes. Awesome.
Well, he paid his water bill, right?
What?
He has to.
Morgan, who are you?
I know, spoke up. Hi, I'm Morgan Geyer. I'm a stage manager in Chicago. I've been freelance stage managing since 2010 in Chicago. Before that, in my college days at the University of Iowa. I stick mostly in the Rogers Park area. I've been working a lot with the Lifeline Theater, and I'm an artistic associate over at the Factory Theater. I've been in and out of Strawdog quite a few times back in the Hugenhall days. So really happy to be back on this program.
Awesome. Thank you, Morgan. Rich.
I'm Rich Katowski. I've lived in Chicago for 69 years. And I ran Mariachi Theater to the ground for 30 years. And I've worked at Strawdog several times and many other theaters in the city. And I'm an actor and a director and so forth.
Yes, you are. And last but not least, we've got Megan Riley. Who are you?
Hi, I'm Megan Riley. I am a lighting and projection designer who has never worked in Chicago, but would happily come down and work with you. I teach at the University of Wisconsin-Madison and have designed lots and lots of places. And currently my research is in virtual reality and virtual reality performance.
Cool. That's really awesome.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not a boring person.
Sorry. Well, thank
no one
you.
would have suggested that, Megan.
So great to meet all of you guys, some of you for the first time. I'm just gonna hop into our first question. What is theater? You can take a moment to think about that or hop right in. What is theater to you?
We're starting light, aren't we?
It's a broad question.
I feel like I answered this on this show like 4 weeks ago.
You can answer it again.
Get you out of it.
Oh, somebody else go first because I'm not normal. So give a normal definition first.
Well, I've answered this once because I've hosted the show once before, and I'm gonna try to like not say the same thing. So I think that theater today, coming from an actor's perspective, when I was in high school, I went to a performing arts high school. One of the best, I guess, acting lessons that I learned was in the theater, you are able to show your ugliest, truest self, and the audience will think it's good acting. So I think today today for me it's an authentic connection, an expression blasted outward to the other actors or whomever is on stage and an audience in a way that feels honest to you, that feels that connects to the other people that are on stage. And what, you know, if it's a well-written play or piece, is a very important moment in my life. That's how theater is feeling to me today, for me today.
Just kind of thinking about that in general, I think that what I consider to be successful theater, not that that's really the question, but in my mind, what I consider to be successful theater is when you, as an audience member, can walk away feeling something and learning something, whether it's about a society, whether it's about a people that you don't interact with, or whether it's about human nature in itself, anything that you learn while also feeling what is being presented, I think is for me what makes successful theater.
Awesome. Rich, what's the
theater? It's a broad question. I mean, what is theater? I mean, theater is a communal experience where people can come together, exchange ideas, and express themselves, and hopefully make a connection with an audience and have them, like you said, walk away with something new or feeling something different. This girl once said to me, people leave my theater feeling bad about themselves.
And what you're telling the story about.
Every story.
Oh, that's interesting. Because I think theater for me today and most days is it's when we come into a shared time and space to tell each other stories so that we can practice being human together.
And I'm sorry, I keep looking up. The cat is right above me, staring at me. For me, I think my definition changes daily depending on what experience I'm currently having, but it's always been sort of any kind of durational narrative that happens that is witnessed by somebody, really. I have a very broad view of what all those things mean, what audience is, or what actors are, or what you know, anything is. So I think that just comes from being a designer in a lot of ways and wanting to create my own work too, is that I'm really interested in experimenting with how far we can push different definitions of things. Oh, that's
awesome.
Specific.
It's really funny, Rich, that you were saying like theater, whatever lady said to you, like theater makes me feel sad after I like go and see it. And like as it relates to theater, you guys, how do you feel? Do you feel like that is what theater is right now? Like, because obviously there's a lot to be said in our society, all across the globe, but like we're looking at America right now. There's a lot to be said, a lot that can be said through theater. Do you feel like audiences or theater goers are like kind of afraid because they're probably going to feel sad or taught something? And a lot of times, you know, that may make someone feel ashamed or, you know, guilty of something. I don't know, Rich's statement made me think of that. Morgan, I feel like.
Yeah, I got some. No, it's interesting you say that, because I do think that especially during COVID and this huge tragedy, because of course we're gonna bring it back to COVID. That'll be what we talk about for the next 15 years because it was so impactful to our generation. I do think that interestingly, the trend for that then made all of our, a lot of our medium that we were taking in needed to be a lot more happier and a lot more uplifting, just because as a counteract to what tragedy we were all dealing with in our own actual personal lives. So I think there is, and I think that some element of like us as humans does get that in a post-COVID, or I don't want to say post-COVID, but a post horribly, pandemic COVID world, is just that I think that the audiences moving forward do want to be entertained and lifted up a little bit more, just because I think we're afraid of having those negative feelings again and feeling that sadness that we were dealing with for so long. So it's interesting to see how that event affects art and storytelling moving forward, just because you're dealing with a very different audience than you were going in.
Absolutely.
Well, COVID really changed the whole structure of theater, I think, because everything got shut down and things are starting up again. It's almost a clean slate where people have to approach it like from a standpoint of nothing's happened before. It's a whole new deal, you know?
Yeah.
I think that sorry, didn't mean to interrupt.
No, go ahead, man.
I was just thinking about my students and our season, and we're doing the Shana Tobe 12th night next year at UW-Madison. And part of the reason why that was chosen was because it was joyful. And I feel like that was a definite response to a season that had Heathers and Rashomon and 2 other plays that dealt with not happy subjects, and the students were really unhappy about it, doing all these really bloody violent plays back to back, and so we deliberately set out to make a season that could actually uplift in some way. So I think that, you know, when we were in the pandemic, I remember thinking that the very first thing that's going to sell out would be Music Man once we get back to quote unquote normal. And I don't know that that was actually the case, but it was this feeling of like people are just going to want a nice musical that makes them feel good. And I still think that there's a thread of that, but also I experienced the pandemic differently, because I feel like within a lot of the media circles, we got to really just come out and do things and experiment with digital theater and virtual theater, and a lot of companies like would merge into video games and put on performances in virtual spaces. And it was really, I think, kind of a birth of a lot of things for me and for others.
I want to bring something up. This is totally separate from some of what we're talking about, but it's something that always sticks in my mind, because I don't know if anyone's familiar with the TV show Utopia.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, some of you guys are, and I'm guessing it's because a lot of Chicago actors were involved in it. I know several people that were involved in it, but it was a TV show on
I was
Amazon.
killed on episode 2.
Really? I got to watch that and find where you die. I'm interested. But
I
is there a British
played Wilson's father.
Oh my gosh, that was you. Oh, you were so
Was there a British version of this show prior
Yes.
to the? Okay, I saw the
prior.
British one, or I saw like half of the season of the British one and said, I can't take this anymore.
Was it during COVID? Because that's part of the issue, is that the show is actually really good and really well cast and really well acted. And Richard,
thank you.
And I thought it was very well done. The problem is that it basically is a fictionalization of COVID and dealing with mass plague, and dealing with like, what's the word I'm looking for? Oh my God, I can't, we've been to vaccinations, like vaccinations. Yeah, right. You think of all the words I forget right now, that vaccine is one of them.
Oh, this works.
But I feel like that, if anything, that this was just a death knell, that COVID was a death knell for that show, just because it was such a reflection of what we were all dealing with, that it was very hard to watch, when it would already have been hard to watch even without that.
I think that people thought a similar thing about the Station 11 series, but it seemed to get a lot of people interested. I think that there was definitely kind of a moratorium, and maybe still is, on things dealing with viruses or plagues or whatever. But I think we're getting back from that.
I mean, The Last of Us, right? Like,
yes.
Yeah.
You know, give me my weekly fungus program. Thank you.
Yeah, but I don't eat mushrooms anymore.
I never ate mushrooms, so it affected it. It didn't negatively affect my life. It increased my appreciation of Pedro Pascal. So that is the net.
You and everyone else in the world. Oh my God.
He's so pretty. You know, but I think there's a question in here that is one that has been gnawing on my brain. See what I did there? For a long time, about how are we being practitioners, how are we in touch with what audiences like want to see, right? Because of all, they're not a monolith. Like, an audience is made up of however many individual humans who have individual desires, and how are the people who are programming shows getting their information about what the audience wants to see? Because I feel like there is a lot, and has been for a long time, a lot of either mind reading that may or may not be in reality about what folks are going to come to see, or a lot of justification for either doing a play that either somebody just wants to do because it's a passion project, and then kind of reverse engineering how the audience wants this thing that is also my favorite thing secretly, right? Instead of just owning the like self-authorization of the artist's vision, right? We're doing this thing because I want to do this thing. And then there's also the other side of it, of like, well, I don't really care too much one way or the other about this play, but when they did it 3 towns over, it sold out. So it'll probably get butts in seats here, right? That has this sort of, it's like the other side of it. So I guess all of that to say, who's talking to the people that come and see plays who are non-practitioners? Or are we just going to repeat the thing we were doing before the pandemic, where we're making plays for ourselves and our friends?
Well, you know, probably the hardest thing there is to do is pick a good play to do. There's nothing harder than finding a good play, and a play that suits your company or what you're doing. And if you have to include worrying about what the audience wants to see, you got a big problem. Do the Neil Simon catalog and you'll get an audience. But if you want to pick a play that's right for the time and right for the people and right for everything, you're gonna have a hard time getting off the pot. You know, you got to pick a play that you're passionate about and you want to do, because you got to hope other people will share the same excitement you have for doing it. I mean, to my demise, maybe I would pick a play. We'd be reading plays, and only Kyle liked this one play, so we're going to do it because Kyle likes this play, because nobody liked any of the plays, or something like that, you know. Anyway, go ahead, Megan.
Sorry.
That's my 2 cents.
I think that not being in the Chicago theater scene, I might have a really different take on things, because the places I've worked are definitely trying to balance. They have to balance what audiences want, because they need to make money. If they don't make money, there's no theater. And they're also, I think right now, doing a fairly good job of it, because they're taking into account the fact that there are voices that haven't been heard, and that their audiences might not even want to listen to. And so they're balancing this, what do audiences want, with who haven't we heard from, and who can we bring in? And that isn't easy to do, but I think that I'm seeing it being done more.
How are they doing that? Because I'm
well, when in picking a season, you have a musical that people want to see, I'm thinking of Theater Squared in Arkansas in particular, because I'm familiar with them.
How do you know people want to see it, is my question.
Because they know their audience, they know their subscribers, they know their.
How do they know their subscribers? Because how are they in
talk to each
conversation?
other.
They
Everybody
talk to all of their subscribers.
You know, I'm not part of the theater, so I'm really not entirely sure what their system is, because I just come in as a contracted designer. But I know the town, I know they talk to everybody and everybody knows everybody.
Okay.
I don't have information on how they are collecting that data.
Well, a lot of theaters pick their plays by, like, for instance, everybody in this country has done Sweat this year or last year or whatever. And they'll pick the Pulitzer Prize winning play or the Tony Award winning play because everybody wants to see that. And it must be good. It won the award, right? But does it suit your company? Maybe, maybe not. If they want to, if we're not a musical theater company, we're not going to do a musical. So that's out. And yeah, Megan, like theaters you're working for probably have big budgets and they have big audience and they have the ability to pull off these musicals but
Having pulled off a musical with them, I wouldn't say that it was incredibly easy and successful and effortless. And we definitely had to fight to use the technology and get hours of crew.
okay.
But like, no, they're not rich. They're not as rich as people think they are, but you know, they're.
But you don't have to be rich. You have to have the ability to do it. And I mean, I never was one to pull out to go and do a musical because I knew we couldn't do it. So.
Well, I think we're talking like different models too, is that you have a core company that you know each other and you know where your strengths are and what the mission statement of your company is. Whereas a small regional theater brings in people from out of town as they need them. They will hire the right people for the roles, and they're trying to balance the whole program.
Of course, and these musicals are attractive. I'm sure they are. You know.
Yes, they are. They do put butts in seats.
All right, guys. I mean, no, go for it, Rich.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Oh, no, I was just gonna bring us up to the next question. I think.
Wait, Morgan has a thought on her face.
You have a
thought. Morgan, we can always tell when you have a thought.
Yeah, she's been having this thought for a minute now.
I have. I just didn't want to interrupt this great discourse that was happening. Okay. So my thought basically was kind of what's really interesting, especially coming out, is that a lot of theaters, what I was seeing, at least in the Chicago side, was most people were going back to the seasons that they missed in 2020. Once they were able to come back, they were producing the shows that they previously had, and it was very hit or miss in some audiences, because these shows were 3 years old, partly because the casts were mostly different. And I think that they thought they could kind of rest on some of the work that had already been done. So I think that season the most recent season is a little bit of a mixed bag, but I think moving forward, something that's becoming more of a conversation piece, not that it wasn't already, is budgets, and having that be such a deciding factor for what seasons are looking forward. You know, it's just so much more of a risk to try and put on a bigger show, even if it's, you know, if it's a musical, or if it's, you know, just something more complex or with bigger casts. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see more, you know, 3-person shows, or more small cast shows, more, you know, Brechtian shows with minimalist sets, just because I think that putting on these larger budget shows is becoming so much more of a gamble than it even was before, which it already was before.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah,
especially if you got an equity show going, you know.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of us work non-equity, and you know that's not really an issue so much. But in fact, more people in the show bring in more people. So.
I have so many thoughts, but I know you're trying to
no, just keep going.
Move us on. Cool. So I think if we see things that are small, that are careful, that are that are shrunk to what we think we can sell in a season, that's like, just put the nails in the coffin right now. I mean, the ship of the institutional American theater is already like barreling toward the iceberg. We might as well just put all the coal in the engine, because I think, like, if you look at what is going to make a case for theater, it's the things that are theatrical, without being like defining the term with the term, right? But like the things where it matters that there are humans in the space with you. It's the things that are courageous, that are big, that are a full-scale musical in a tiny storefront theater, right? And does that mean that we have to raise our money differently? Yes, but we've needed to raise our money differently for 20 years. So that's not new. We're just at more of a crisis point now. And like, you see things like, and oh God, it pains me physically to make this comparison because it does. But I think about like the things that are like the new production of Parade, right? That is a big, Kyle, can we swear on this program? That is a big fuck off musical, right? Sweeney Todd, big fuck off musical. Those are the things that are getting excitement, right? It's not this like, and then I promise I will pass the mic, but I think the other side of the scale could be super powerful as well, right? The thing that is the rough magic that plays on, that invites and necessitates the audience's imaginations, that don't cost a ton of money, right? Like, give me a well-crafted ensemble cast, like give me fucking Our Town done with excellence and heart, and that's going to bring people back into the theater faster than something that's safe, that's cheap, and that we can do without making a whole lot of risk.
I think that's, as artists who are just like always in the game, like, yes, we want to see that. We want to see like what society is talking about, what we want, bigger, more diverse audiences. We want that. But like, this is no insult to anyone. Your everyday Joe Schmo is like, give me Parade sometimes. Sometimes give me a musical that I don't want to think about. As
you seen Parade?
Yes. Well, it's actually, no, I actually haven't. But I know my boyfriend talked to me about it, about what happens there. Ben Platt and whoever is doing it on Broadway, blah blah blah. But but there's like music, like that's beautiful. It could take me away. A lot of my point is, maybe not using Parade specifically. As a millennial, or as anyone who's lived in the last 10 years, there's a lot of bullshit happening in the world. And sometimes you do want to go out. Sometimes you turn on reality television. Sometimes you want to go and see a musical where you don't have to think. I'm not saying, Jess, that I don't want to do the work that you're talking about on the with the heart and with the new ideas, putting new ideas in front of new faces. But I'm just playing advocate here. Sometimes people are just like, can I, after working 8 hours, dealing with my children, or like paying bills, like I have this ticket, I do just want to get away. Fuck it. I don't want to have a whole day of like.
Now, Johnard, you're speaking from the audience point of view, not from the producer's point of view.
Exactly. Well, I'm not. That is where I'm speaking from. I'm saying, like, I don't think that we can absolutely shit on them for wanting to relax, to get away, to have some joy. Jess, say it.
Yeah.
Go.
Yes, and I'm thinking about. I'm not saying that. I think we're drawing a false dichotomy that that there is either work that is satisfying and challenging to the artists who are making it that is inaccessible to audiences, right? And it's going to make them think hard, and it's going to be their cultural vegetables, and we're going to choke them with that cultural broccoli, right? And they're going to be so fucking grateful because we are artists with a capital A, right? And then there's like the Music Man over here. And what I'm saying is that there is something that has the theatricality and the artistry, and where there is also an invitation to the audience, because I think we also can't assume, I think it does ourselves and our audiences a huge disservice to assume that all they can handle is something light and fluffy that's going to soothe them and make them feel better, right? Because we can create a unique, compelling experience that is also accessible. And part of what I think the problem has been is that we aren't creating enough of that invitation to the audience. We're not thinking about them enough, so that whatever it is that we're creating, you know, I think about several years ago, there was the Hypocrites did a production of Pirates of Penzance in the basement of the Chopin Theater in January. So it's in Chicago. So it's cold and snowy when we still had snow, like a real winter, and like hateful outside. And then you go into this weird basement and there's a beach. And it's a Gilbert and Sullivan musical, but it is one of the most accessible things I've ever seen. And it is joyful. And it's like Christine Stulich in a fucking kiddie pool, but it created a way for the audience to join it in that complexity and in that like heightened theatrical, very virtuosic, demanding piece that those performers put together.
I mean,
Megan.
I'm sorry.
Megan,
I wanted to jump in because you were talking about reaching out to the audience. And I feel like as a designer, like one of my big things right now is researching specifically experience design, and how do we design a show, create a show, any script for specifically this audience, as opposed to anybody's vision. And you can do that with your big musicals, and you can do that with your small artsy plays. I don't think that, I don't know, I mean, poor Music Man, and I don't know Parade at all, so I have no idea what you're talking about, what's going on with Parade. I'm going to tell you, like, if I go to New York, I want to see a musical. We went to England and we saw 4 shows. We saw Back to the Future, Life of Pi, Cabaret, and The Burnt City. Guess which one we flew there for, and guess which one was the best show? We flew there for The Burnt City.
Oh.
And the best one was Back to the Future. Why was it the best one? It's a shitty musical. I'm sure it will be better on Broadway. It was so much freaking fun. Like, it was just fun. And to be honest, the technology and the design elements of it, mind-blowing, absolutely mind-blowing. And so we had more fun at that than anything else, than spending 3 hours in Punch Drunk's thing, which I love. And I was going to say, Jess, too, like, there's something to be said for this resurgence in the past decade of wanting to do immersive work and wanting to do interactive work that we have not necessarily embraced as theater makers as much as we should. And I feel like there's an audience. I mean, my prior research was in the horror scene in Los Angeles, and there was an audience there that was coming from haunted houses, not from theater. And they were coming to see theater, and then you could even maybe convince them to go see A Doll's House, and they would love it, because now they understand what the power of theater is. And I think that there's an audience there too that we're not thinking of, this younger generation that has been doing interactive theater in the form of video games their whole lives. And that's all I was gonna say. So go, Warden.
By the way, the Music Man is a very dark story.
Honestly. I was just something, because I found my in to talk about cats, as much as I hate cats, and I figured that was a common denominator. We can all argue about Music Man, but cats sucks. We all know.
Oh, that
talking about the
sucks.
musical and not about the animals.
Yes, no, the cats themselves are great. The musical, horrible. We can all agree Cats sucks. But in that, I also think, we all take from theater and we all take from our experiences what we want, because you look at the Cats movie that came out. Wow, that was horrible. So horrible, in fact, that it became its own thing. And that's one of the joys of theater and storytelling in general, is that it's all about the audience's perspective. It doesn't matter that this is the worst musical movie ever made, and I don't argue with me on that, because I'm sure someone.
Oh no, I was going to say the same thing happened to Diana though.
I don't know what that is, and I'm scared.
Diana, the musical about Diana, it was terrible.
Very scared.
And there's a production of it on Netflix. You can watch it on Netflix.
No.
Once it went on Netflix, its popularity went through the roof, and people like went on Twitter and were all like, save Diana, because suddenly it became like this thing that drew people to it. It was camp, and they weren't taking it seriously. Anyway, sorry.
But no, like that's exactly my point. We don't always know what's going to hit with your audience, and it's whether your audience is one person or whether your audience is the entire human race of theater goers. I'm still amazed Cats is as widely loved as it is, because I as a theater creator don't get it. I as a theater goer don't get it, and I have a feeling most of you probably don't get it either. But people love it.
I sung this song all the time. I wanted to direct a production of Cats forever that stars cats, and no one. Yeah.
Oh,
no one let me do this.
My God.
I really, if it's like memories coming out and you're actually holding the cat up and
the cat's screaming because they don't want to be held up.
Yeah.
Megan,
yeah. Then they're singing.
Front row.
I mean,
done. We're doing Cats, guys. We've got all the roles filled.
Okay, I'm gonna say this, and then we'll move on to one of the questions that we have on deck. But Megan, Jess, I see what you mean. I definitely see what you mean about they're not entirely separate things. Going to see a musical for your own personal getaway and like creating something that is meaningful, maybe new, or thought-provoking to an audience. I just want to let you know, I don't think that those are separate things, but I didn't want to like reprimand the I guess I was coming from a place where I thought we were like reprimanding the audience for wanting like a chill fucking night. You know what I mean? So the season subscription model no longer feels compatible with how folks want to attend events. What are some other models, you guys, that either already exist or that we can dream up that could replace this old season subscription model? If you have an answer.
It's interesting because I do think that similarly, I think that, companies, and I've been a part of several of these companies that have gone, oh, well, we need to have 3 shows to be considered serious. We need to have 3 shows to make our season full and to keep our people interested. But the problem is that usually leads to, there's one show you really want to do, there's one show that you're prepared to do, and then there's that other show because you need that 3rd show. And that's when things get interesting, which I think, can have a real adverse effect to the theater community. And I don't think anyone's shocked by it. Even most of the time the people working on that 3rd show are also like, we're the 3rd show. So like, is it really worth trying to make art just to fit what is considered a standard? Or should we really be holding our budgets and holding our people for stuff we really care about?
So I feel like you're talking about season selection as it relates to
about the necessity of a 3-show season.
Okay.
And whether or not theater companies should be continuing to try and make that model a standard.
Gotcha.
Well, there used to be a thing where a group of theaters got together and offered a package for the whole group of theaters, So you can subscribe to this theater group and go to 3 of their shows, whatever company you wanted to. But I don't know how cooperative any theater groups are now, but that was a thing back in the day, as opposed to a subscription to just one theater.
I'm not sure if it's still active, but I believe the Rogers Park theaters have group ticketing that's an option. I don't know if it's still, I know that was before everything shut down, but I'm not sure if it's happening now, and it really should.
I think that a lot of it depends on if you're trying to, as an individual artist, make a living at this. I mean, if people drop to a 2-show season, a 3-show season, then what are you doing with your actors who aren't employed at that time? Or how do you have, I mean, how does the individual artist feel about that? Because it loses opportunities that they need.
You know what's funny? Like, thinking of that and like saying like, you know, upcoming there may be shows with 2 or 3 people, and like there may be 1 show in our season. That all just makes me think that everything's getting smaller and smaller and smaller, which is worrisome, but it also could be my anxiety.
Well, it's smaller. It depends. Are we going for quantity or are we going for quality?
Well, we'd hopefully go for quality. hopefully I keep working.
Yeah.
Well,
given the number of people that have left the community in the last 3 years, you might still be fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like, especially as I'm educating what's supposed to be a next generation of designers or whatever, like, I want you to do the big musical because I want my kids to have jobs. And they want to do musicals because they love them. That's all they talk about. They referred to Fences as an obscure play. What? We're going to try to fix that. Anyway, I just, a lot of the talk about, you stop laughing. A lot of the talk about making theater smaller or theater becoming smaller feels like it's excluding designers in a lot of ways. And I just see us doing fewer plays that involve me doing work because my work requires money.
And I think the problem is that, yeah, all of our work requires money. Like, everyone wants to have enough money to live inside the house.
I'm talking about on the stage, though, like the money on the stage, building the sets, buying
the budget for a set, yeah.
The budget for costumes, the budget for labor to build those costumes, the budget for buying a projector to do a show. I mean, that all goes out the window before the people do.
Yeah.
Sometimes.
I mean,
show me where it doesn't in this new, like, smaller theater model.
I mean, I think the question here, if I'm understanding it, and I think I'm understanding it because I submitted it, is that the notion that we've been operating under for like all of theatrical living memory, right, is the way that you get money to do your play or your plays is that you get the money in advance from the subscribers, so then you have the money and then you make the plays with the money. But the subscription model is dying. Like and even getting enough money to make the play through ticket sales is dying. I think the new I heard one major theater in Chicago that I will not name because I don't know that I'm authorized to, their newest round of numbers, they're pulling in 20% of their budget from ticket sales. 20.
Sure. I mean, individual donations are the strongest sense of budget. That's where the money comes from. Donations, grants, and donors. I mean,
yeah.
Ticket sales are the least of it, really. Sure, it helps to have a hit show, I'll tell you that, but
it does, but like, is there another way? So if we acknowledge that, like, I guess what I'm not advocating for oh, we should do theater with less money, we should do smaller theater. I mean, I'm advocating for quite the opposite, but I think we need to figure out a new way to pay for it, because the way that we have to pay for it now, like that money is literally going away because people aren't subscribing in the numbers that they used to.
Morgan?
It's interesting because, you know, for the most part, speaking, you know, from at least from my experience, and in Chicago, a majority of the theater is nonprofit. And I've worked in a few other nonprofits, and it's not uncommon for large portions of the budget for nonprofit theaters to not be coming from whatever the product they're selling or promoting to be. It's from donations. It's from people who are making sure that the institution is continuing on because they care about what they're doing. So in my mind, I don't think that that's unexpected or a newer concept. I think it is for theater companies. I think a lot of people going into making theater assumed that the ticket sales would be a good portion of where the money is coming from. But especially if you're looking at a nonprofit theater model and you're looking at, smaller houses and smaller companies, like I don't see, having donors be the majority of your income being as in any way unusual.
It is absolutely necessary.
Yes.
Not if you survived on box office alone, you wouldn't be doing very much.
And that's even if you have a good play.
Right.
And I would assume you would get those donors by doing hit shows.
No, by
necessarily.
writing grants and appealing to the right people, the people who have the money and who are interested in your company and interested in what you're doing.
Right. Grants aside, like how do you get donors? Like
you have to recruit people who are interested in who you are, what you're doing, and they come regularly to your shows and they support they become part of what you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
You have to make them part of what you're doing. Otherwise, they're just throwing money at a brick wall. They want to be part of it. And if they want to be part of it, they're going to lay down some cash. I know that. Yeah. And you have to have somebody who can appeal to these people. It's not easy to be the guy begging for the money. And it's not, I'll tell you that. And when you're writing grants and you're appealing to all these people, you wouldn't believe how much money comes from all these sources. And that pretty much helps your box office too, because they're talking about your shows, everybody's talking about your show, and they're excited about what you're doing. And regardless of what show you're doing, if people aren't excited about what you're doing, they're not going to come. And they're not going to support you, and they're not going to give you the donations.
Megan?
Can I make one outlandish suggestion, which I don't know anything about subscription models or how to get people in seats. I design lights. But a lot of the things that I've been working on with experience design have been one-on-one things, and there's a lot of interactive stuff that is one-on-one based that people would pay for. So if you had an event, and this would not cover a season, obviously, but if you had an event where you were able to design personalized theater experiences for individual people and sell them, sell tickets to them, like you will get this much for X amount of dollars, that might be a way to raise money while putting your talents to use. But that I'm already thinking of all the reasons why this is a bad idea. So yeah, forgive me for throwing that out there. It means people
I don't think that's a bad idea at all. I think the idea of a cultivated, personalized experience, especially for, like Rich is saying, the folks who want to give you, like for the people who can pay for it, right? And like, even if they are, because you get to a certain level in, especially when you're looking at major gift donors, that some of it is true believers, some of it is status and clout, right? In terms of what the donor is getting out of the exchange, right? But if you can offer, like, I don't know, what would a $5,000 cultivated pre-show experience for, for a play look like? I have no idea, but I think it's an interesting question, as we don't want to get into the indecent proposal territory, but like, what is it that, like, how can you create
if you read the book, is it The Art of the Gathering by Priya Parker? A lot of that is in it. Like, how do you get people in a room and create an experience? I mean, I think there's a lot of things that people have done in immersive theater that if you did that first for a smaller group and say, like, come pay $5,000 a plate to this crazy ass dinner where stuff will happen to you. I've seen the worst of immersive theater, so believe me, I'm not wanting to go there either. But I think it could be a thing that people could use to raise money. That's what I'm suggesting.
I think bringing up Priya Parker is, and thank you for bringing her name into this conversation, because I think she's brilliant, and I think that idea of, I think every theater maker should read Art of Gathering, and folks who are thinking about audience experience should read it twice, right? Because it is so much about why are you here? Why are you bringing this group of people together? Like the debatable, the something reason. Anyway, she lays out all of these things that you need specificity around, and then it's time bound. There's so much of it that runs alongside a theatrical event. And if we thought more about our audience members as our guests, I wonder, we use that word sometimes in this sort of like, oh, the guests, or like theme parks use that word, right? But if we thought more about each individual audience member as a guest, how might that transform what we're doing?
I'm so glad that you read that book too. Like, thank you for saying that. Yeah, it's a great book.
Yeah.
I haven't read it, but if I'm understanding you correctly.
I appreciate the cat butt greatly.
I'm sure Justice Cat is ready to audition for your musical of Cats.
His body is ready. Yeah.
But are you saying like for example, like if someone is like, I will give you like $5,000 to propose to my girlfriend or partner on your set of Moulin Rouge, is that what you mean by like?
There are, I think that she talks about this in her book, but I might have gotten it from somewhere else. There are gatherings where people, this is going to sound like Eyes Wide Shut, and I'm not trying to be like that at all. But there are immersive gatherings where you don't know the location before you go. And so you're given like, here's your dress code and here's the password and here's the secret location. And so go to it, this costs money. And if people paid for it and that money went to the theater, I mean, I think you could create this like hyped event that people wanted to go to and people were willing to spend the money around.
Yeah, I mean, like, what if you had a production of Cabaret that people didn't know they were going to see Cabaret necessarily, but what they knew was they were going to go to a secret. Like, if you set up the invitation in a way that gets people in the headspace of what going into that nightclub in Berlin for Christopher Isherwood, right, the guy who wrote the book that it's based on, like, what if you could set up that sort of experience, right? Or like, what if, like, I think of the like I did a production of Arcadia a million years ago where we had tea and cookies for everybody in the lobby, and had and this was very like Punch Drunk influenced. We had like Thomasina's sketchbooks that you could look through, and like the garden book that's referenced in the play, because so much of that play is about this space and the things that people are finding and creating as we move through the story. So putting the audience in this, like, in the experience, I think is part of what made that production work.
Gotcha.
There's a whole argument for it in the Pine book, the experience economy, which I know that like a lot of immersive theater scholars really hate for comparing it to an experience economy, but the experience economy was a rethinking of the business model as not business where you make a product, but business where you are creating an experience, and that business itself is a piece of theater. And it's a really interesting take on it, but it's saying like, if you can convince people that this experience they're having is unique and personalized, they will come away with a greater love for your product and associating those feelings with it. So if you think about that for theater, I feel like I'm just going into territory that people wouldn't like, but like, if you think about your product as the show and people associate the feelings of whatever experience they had going to the show with it, that they'll come back.
And I think that sort of thinking is very good for this new generation of our theater goers. Experience is taught, like you said, in business everywhere. I work at a restaurant. It is not, it's an experience, you know. There's like, you can go see a painting, you know, at the Art Institute, or, you know, the Modern Art Museum, or whatever, or you can have the experience of like what the painting looks like on walls, and if it changes, and, you know, Instagram rooms and stuff like that. So I definitely think, or I understand now what you were saying, and I definitely think that is a way of making people feel and share and want to go and like give money to be a part of. I definitely think that's a good idea.
Keeping it out of Punch Drunk's budget would probably be the challenge, but
I'm ordering that book right now.
we should tell Priya Parker that we want a chunk of her sales.
See if we can get her on here.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, that would be a really interesting conversation, I bet. Like, if like Priya, come help us. Priya, if you're watching, come help us fix the
Down to the
American
world, yes.
theater.
Yes, Priya Parker will save
Secret.
theater.
Called manifesting.
Manifest.
So we're gonna try to answer this one really quickly. This one's also a you, Jess. Sorry, I'm not like following.
Oh, we can skip I think there was like an audience question in there somewhere we can skip to.
Ryan, perusing the offerings in Chicago, it seems median ticket price is upwards of $30 to $40, if not more, for non-equity storefront black box productions like Lifeline. When thinking of your audience, how much does ticket price factor in?
Ticket price is an interesting thing. If you have a low ticket price, like $10 or $15, it makes it hard to discount those prices. This is something I discovered while I was running a theater. The higher your ticket prices, the better discount you can give your customers. So when we ran a show at the Royal George, we charged $50 a ticket, but we were able to sell tickets for $25 and make it, you know. If you're in your own theater and you're renting a space and you're selling your tickets for $30 or $40, you can offer a $20 ticket and be good. If you're selling tickets for $10 and $15, what are you going to offer, a $5 ticket, $10 ticket? I mean, it just gives you a bigger margin to work with, and the people feel like they're getting a break, you know.
Morgan?
So pulling something that has nothing to do with theater. My previous job, I worked with in medical spas and kind of with helping people get started with their businesses. And we had a consultant who would speak during some of our seminars, and he would talk about formatting menus and how you would go to a very high price, high class, restaurant and establishment. And you get the wine list, and at the very bottom would be the, the most expensive wine, like that's like $1,000 a bottle. And more often than not, they don't even have that wine readily available. It's not about people ordering that wine. It's about having that wine and getting that perception of this, successful show. I think it's similar to kind of like when, you're kind of negotiating salary. Was it Barnum? Who was it that used to do the writing the salary on a piece of paper and then sliding it over? Who was that? I can't remember who that was. Anyway, it's about saying, we have the confidence in ourselves to charge these tickets, but then you never actually charge those ticket amounts.
People don't want to go to a cheap place. They don't want to go to a $10 play. It's going to be crummy. Well, I want to go to a $30 play. That's going to be good.
But they want to go to a $30 play for $10 because they're in the Midwest.
Yeah, right.
But then who are you guys talking about as well? Like if you want to, like, sure, someone in Lakeview can afford a like $100 ticket, but someone like myself who's broke as hell may not, like, I want to see this show, but I can't pay that, that
you're gonna get price. You're gonna get the industry discount.
Well, of course I am rich. Pretend I'm not me. Just pretend I'm somebody.
You're gonna get a cap from one of the actors.
You're right. Which still, yeah, you're right. Like I want to go. Like how do we make sure? Like and also
your
like
boyfriend's gonna bring you there. He'll pay for the ticket.
He absolutely will. But let's say, would you if I'm not giving discounts, or if I'm not a part of that, like if I don't have the discount code or what have you, are you really willing to say like, well, I guess I'll keep the empty seats because I want them to know that my production value is like high?
No.
Well, I think that there's a question in here too about the value of our work. Hi, Kitty. And that we need to put a price on the ticket that represents the work that we've put in and how much we value that labor and how much we value the artist making it too. I don't think it's all about trying to sell every seat at $10 a seat. I think it's also about like shit costs money. And
right.
Like, and you can get more money if you fill those seats in.
Yes,
$10 is better than no dollars.
If you devalue the product by selling it for $10 as opposed to $75 or whatever else, like I feel like if you have a product, if you have a show that is really good, people will find the money to come. And maybe not all of us can, I don't know, but I think that we have to realize that we have to stop devaluing us as artists, us as the labor making this, and say like the tickets have to be this much because that's how much we cost to make it.
But I also, just kind of piggybacking on that, I also think there's something to your marketing. We can say, oh my gosh, put it out in the world. If you're finding out how much those tickets cost, there should be just as much ability to find out that there's a discount. If you're looking on the website and it says, on Thursdays, it's 30% off, then you go, great, I need to find a Thursday to go to. And that's an easy way to be selling those seats that wouldn't otherwise be used on a Thursday.
There's all kinds of discounting. In fact, Gold Star, there's industry night, there's military discount, there's senior citizen discount, there's all kinds of discounts.
Yeah.
So, and you can negotiate anything. So
you can. I was gonna say, anytime you call a box office, that box.
But if you set your price at $10, you're setting yourself up for disaster because you can't discount a $10 ticket.
Sure you can. You go to $5.
Right, exactly. May as well let them in for free, right? Pay what you can. A lot of theaters have pay what you can.
Yeah.
But and what's interesting about pay what you what's interesting about pay what you can is that there's data that shows that you actually get more revenue at your box office when you ask folks to pay when you offer pay what you can, when all the tickets are pay what you can, but you can you can pay $30 to have a reserved seat in advance, right? If it's all pay what you can at the door, But if if you want to sit in your aisle seat, Helen, then you can pay $30. I don't know who Helen is.
Who's
but
Helen?
We all know Helen.
we all know.
Helen. But there is this, because some people can pay $5, other people can pay $50, $75, right? Like there is some, and of course I don't have it like in my pocket, but there is some data, and of course that was pre-pandemic, so who knows where we are now. I feel like a lot of data is sort of like, well, we got to retest that now, for especially for things like audience behavior. But but this, I think there is a fallacy, no matter what the ticket price is, that in the audience there can be an idea that like, oh, my ticket costs $25. There are 100 people in this audience. Therefore, this performance cost $2,500, and we all just divvied. It's like we went to dinner together and we split the check. But that's not it, right? So like there's a festival in Austin, Texas called Fusebox that went to totally free tickets several years ago now. And part of why they did that was they then had, like, part of their welcome to the audience, they did a curtain speech at every single show that was like, hi, you didn't have a set ticket price to come in here. Why is that? Because it actually costs more than 25 per however many of you are in this room to make this show. So that amount was arbitrary, so we got rid of it. So, and it eventually made their development staff's life a little more challenging, but it was wildly successful, at least in the first few years. Ron Barry's a genius. And so is Brad, who was the managing director.
Well, and I think that there's a point to that too, of just kind of being open and honest with your audiences as well. And, I think so many times, especially in the last few years, we'll be in situations of like, oh, that theater's closing. And it's like, well, why didn't you reach out? Why didn't you tell people that this is your situation? Just being like saying, hey, this is how much shows cost. Hey, this is really the value and where it is. I think so many companies are worried about showing that for some reason. And I think that that's something we should change in storefronts in Chicago.
All right, everyone. I want to thank Megan, Jess, Morgan, and Rich, our lovely panelists who came here tonight with us. Kyle Hammond, thank you for producing and creating the show. We want to thank officehours.global and the DVE store. Thank you, Five, of course, is made possible by Strawdog Theater, ensemble members like myself. We run on a free theater model, yay, where our productions are available to everyone and anyone. We do this by generous donations from our community. If you want to donate, please donate. You can check out strawdog.org, and hopefully you can find the time to donate, so you can see our work and continue to support us. Next week we'll have more conversations like this with more theater artists. Submit your questions, y'all. Submit. We love it. We love it when you do. And if you want to join us, or if you have a friend that you think would be really awesome on the show, you could also go to strawdog.org. Oh my gosh, I should have warmed up. Strawdog.org. Submit them. Have them on the show. We'd love to have them. Thank you again, you guys, for being with us tonight. And thank you guys for watching. That was Thank You, Five. Woo! Okay.